You know where you are. You're with us on Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Coming up, with the Bills defense tied for the league lead in sacks, will they eclipse the single-season team record? And what do league sack leaders do exactly in the postseason? Former Bills and Patriots wide receiver Chris Hogan gets us set for Bills Pats. And Steve will do his best, as always, in the numbers game. Keep your head on a swivel, everybody. Boy, did you make a good decision. Welcome to Bills by the Numbers. Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker, Bills insider Chris Brown with you. And it's hard not to notice that Buffalo's defensive front has been flat-out dominant when it comes to getting after the opposing quarterback. Another 3 sacks last week gives Buffalo 24 in their first 6 games. It's tied for the league lead with Baltimore. Only 2 seasons in Bills team history have there been more sacks through 6 games. They had 25 in 1997 and 26 in 1964, which was a year that ended pretty well for them in the AFL days. The question for you, Steve, is does this productivity mean more now in this era of passing and quarterback importance than it did back when offenses were more reliant on top-flight running backs to balance out a team's attack?
Well, certainly it means more when the league is throwing more, but it also means you're going to get more opportunities, and all the numbers would be inflated exponentially. But I think one of the things you got to know is it puts pressure on the opposing offense to have the ball come out fast. It takes pressure off your secondary. And in a season when, for a game now, we've had both top corners out of the lineup, Tre'Davious White for the rest of the season. Of course, Dane Jackson didn't play. You've got your corner 3 and your corner 4 on the outside in the game, both second-year players. You really need to take the pressure off them. And I think you get an exponential rate of return when the strength of your defense is your pass rush.
I'm just thinking, like, they're tied for the league lead in sacks right now. Von Miller doesn't even have his legs under him yet, and that's your best pass rusher.
He's
think about that for a second.
He's taken 30 plays in the season.
Your best pass rusher isn't even up to speed yet, and you're tied for the league lead in sacks, and it goes across the board. I mean, it's not just like, hey, this guy's having a really great year. You got Ed Oliver playing the best football of his career. I would argue, I would say you can make an argument that Greg Rousseau is playing his best football of his young career. Leonard Floyd looks the same as always and is atop the leaderboard in sacks right now. And then you have
A.J. Epinesa is having
A.J.
a year of
Epinesa
his
is
life.
playing his best football. Thank you for mentioning him. And once again, Von Miller is just getting up to speed. So it is very, very encouraging going forward. Buffalo's top 2 sack seasons all time came in back-to-back seasons, 57 in 2013, 54 in 2014, both of which were under defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, who is now killing it in Cleveland, by the way. At their current pace, the Bills would shatter the team record for sacks with 67. Knowing Von Miller, as we said, isn't even back up to form yet, how likely do you think they set the Bills team record for sacks in a season?
It's on the record, and I think one reason you got to say this team has a better chance than the 2013-14 team is the fact that they've got a good offense. They're going to be facing some teams that are with their foot on the gas trying to score points. So teams that the Bills play against are going to keep trying to score because they got to keep up with Josh and Steph Diggs and the crew. Now, that hasn't been the case the last couple of weeks, but they have been tight games where the other team doesn't have a lead you're trying to protect by running the football, run the clock out. You're going to get a lot of teams that have their foot on the gas and they're still trying to throw the football down the field late in games, which means more opportunity. So this team is set up for it even better than the 13-14 teams that set the record.
I think they'll have a look at this thing for a team.
It'll be on the table for a long time.
I think they'll have a look at it because of the depth that we already mentioned. It's not just one guy that's been productive, and knowing, again, Von Miller should only be on the ascent the rest of the way, and a young, promising player like a Kingsley Jonathan is a player that's on the ascent and figures to get better come the second half of the season. This pass rush group and rotation could be even deeper and more productive as the year goes on, provided everybody, fingers crossed, stays healthy. I think we can all agree that leading the league in sacks doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl or that you're even going to the Super Bowl, but Philadelphia did last season after leading the league with 70 sacks. The year before, however, Pittsburgh led the league with 55. They finished 9-7-1. And in Buffalo's two best sack seasons, they went 6-10 and 9-7. But if you have an offense like the Eagles did last year, or a top 5 attack like the Bills do this season, how much can the most productive pass rush in the league help get you over the top?
Well, it's got to be in the conversation for difference-making group because of the fact that those plays tend to come in big moments when the other team has got to make something happen. They're still dropping back late in games. It's going to be a huge one. I'm not saying the numbers are going to make a difference, but certainly that type of defense is going to make a difference. Sean McDermott, we're seeing the fruits of his play calling already. They're churning out turnovers. They're churning out interceptions, and that is all about defending the passing game. Certainly they've forced a couple of fumbles, but most of them in sack strips. Yep. So their ability to score points offensively has set this defense up for Sean McDermott to really dial in some pass pressures. And the level of play they're getting from their defensive ends and Ed Oliver down inside has been spectacular.
In the last 10 years, only 2 teams that led the league in sacks reached the Super Bowl. The aforementioned Eagles from last year and the 2015 Denver Broncos, who beat Carolina for the championship. The 2018 Chiefs made it to the AFC title game, and an offsides penalty kept them from going to the Super Bowl that year. So besides an elite quarterback, is there anything we'd put above leading the league in sacks as a team priority for getting to the Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, turnovers is the only one that comes into that ballpark. Scoring is always a plus.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of statistics that point right to wins losses. Turnovers is a big one. Sacks is a contributing factor, but scoring and turnovers are the only 2 that are even in the conversation with sacks. And even turnovers is a defensive
red zone
stat.
play is something you'd probably
That's
also
true.
throw in there
That's
on
true.
offense and defense for that matter.
There's a handful, and it's those statistics where you go, well, of course that is scoring. Yeah, well, if you score, yeah, okay. Or turnover. Well, yeah, if you're going to lead the league in turnover, those are the kind of statistics you're talking about. Then it comes sacks is just below that as an indicator of how well you're playing.
Yeah.
Because you've got to win, and we'll say it again. Let's say it together. You got to win up front, both sides of the line of scrimmage. When you're giving up a lot or getting a lot of sacks, you're winning on that side of the ball, and it starts up front.
Right.
And it's the indicator.
But you think about those 2 teams that got to the Super Bowl in the last 10 years. The Eagles had a great offense and coupled it with a great defensive front that led the league with 70 sacks. The Broncos led the league in sacks in 2015, but they also had Peyton Manning throwing for like 55 touchdowns that year. Like, you got to have a balanced team,
right.
But if you have an elite quarterback or at least an ultra-productive offense that can be in the top 5 in scoring, and you're also leading the league in sacks, you're probably going to get there.
Right.
Who do you believe, Steve, finishes this season as the Bills' leader in sacks, and how many does he have? Who's your horse?
I'm going to say Leonard Floyd with 13.5.
Woo! That's a lot.
It is. But you double this, what he's got. He's got 6.
He's got 6.5, I think.
6.5, and you double it is 13.
Yeah, that's
after
reasonable.
6 games. I think they've been consistent. He's not going anywhere. I mean, the guy's going to continue to get reps even when Vaughn comes back.
Yep.
I think A.J. Epinesa, Rousseau, they're all going to – back in the 13-14 seasons, you had like 4 guys with double-digit sacks.
Double digits, right.
I don't know if we'll get there, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have 2 guys at least.
Maybe 3.
With 2 or 3 guys with doubles, with 10 sacks or more.
I'll put a chip down on Greg Rousseau. I'm hoping he can stay healthy. That's something that's proven difficult for him. High ankle sprain last year. He's already dealing with a foot injury this year. But, man, I like the way he's playing right now. Mm-hmm. I like the way Epinesa is playing, too, but he's kind of in a rotation. I was surprised. I watched the Bills played like over 75 snaps on defense last week. He didn't get 20 snaps, and he still made an impact. He had a sack. And so I'm wondering if he's going to get on the field enough to factor into that leading sacker on the team category.
Yeah, they don't give snaps out for no reason. So there's a reason he's in and out. And it was probably a matchup thing with the Giants. Probably had to do with Saquon Barkley and his ability to run. I'd say, well, we've noticed it ever since. Even when Greg Rousseau was a young in this defense, he could set the edge really well. That may have something to do with it.
Right, with Barkley back
last week. They might like his ability to set the edge. Plus, it was a close game, and they knew that the run game was going to stay involved with the Giants because the Bills trailed through 3.5 quarters.
So let me counter that with this. Von Miller got more snaps than A.J. Epinesa last week. He got 27. So and he's not in there to play the run, if you know what I mean. So
I get you.
So I don't know. I was perplexed by it. I hope that doesn't hold up because I think if you play him more. Think about all the snaps he had to play in Jacksonville in Week 5 due to the injuries. Guy made a major impact on the football game.
Yeah, he was. The more reps he's gotten, the more production he's given. But I would say this. I said again, it's not arbitrary who gets those snaps.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see see if we'll get more clues as to why they rotate the way they do.
All right, good discussion there on Buffalo's pass rush. Let's turn our attention to the opponent coming up in Week 7 for the Bills, the Patriots on the road in New England. Two of their most talented defensive players out of the lineup. Top pass rusher Matthew Judon, first-round pick corner Christian Gonzalez. For more on the matchup, we turn to former Bills and Patriots receiver Chris Hogan from the Patriots Report on the Believe Network. All right, let's begin here, Chris. It's been a tough row to hoe on offense for this Patriots team. They haven't scored over 20 points all season, and I know they got 17 last week, but man, it's been tough for them. 20 total points in the last 3 games. Is it just a byproduct of what's going on up front? Because everybody, coaches always say it starts up front, or are there just multiple issues at play here for them?
I think it's multiple issues. I mean, the first thing to talk about is really the turnovers. That's really what's killing this football team. It's the inability to kind of take care of the football. Too many mistakes, too many mental errors, fumbles, throwing interceptions. It's going to be tough to put up points, and it's going to be tough to win football games in the NFL if you're turning the football over like that. So I think that's really the first thing that you have to talk about. And then you can address the other things. I mean, I kind of talk about it every single week with this team. You need guys to kind of step up and start making some big plays down the field and try to come up with those chunk plays and really take care of the football, because turning the football over in the NFL is a recipe for disaster. And that really has not – they've done it pretty consistently for the first part of the season. And, it's put the defense in bad spots and it's putting their team in bad spots. And they're really not built to play from behind. And that's kind of where we've fallen in the first part of the season in these games.
And with a coaching staff with the pedigree that the Patriots have and the turnovers, I mean, the turnovers are almost always, if they're 100% of the time, they're on the players. I mean, it's not like anybody's coaching them to drop the ball or get it or throw it the wrong guy. This is totally a roster issue. I don't think it's a coaching issue, right?
No. I mean, I've been there and I know how he addresses turnovers and ball security. So, after that first game and there a few fumbles and the pick, the interceptions, that's a topic that they're talking about all week. And I know he's been talking about it in practice, pretty consistently now for the first 5-6 games of the season. And, that's on the players. Certainly Bill's not teaching, Mac to throw the ball across the field or for guys to kind of carry the ball loosely going through the line of scrimmage. So that's on them. They have to take accountability for taking care of the ball security. I mean, that's what he preaches, and a lot of guys preach that. I mean, turnovers is really, that's a key to every single game that you're going into. And that's on the players, so they have to really take more accountability on themselves to take care of the football and understand that every single possession that they get in the NFL is going to be, a key possession, and it could change the course of a football game.
Flipping it over to defense, Chris, two of their most talented and physically gifted players out indefinitely in Judon and Christian Gonzalez, their top draft choice. How have they adjusted with their absences here, not only now, but for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean, tough losses. Christian Gonzalez was having an outstanding rookie, season. Definitely a very gifted player, and looking forward to kind of watching him mature and build on, who he is as a player over the course of his career. And Matthew was a leader on that defense, a guy that was able to kind of disrupt an offense and make some plays in the backfield. So, they brought in JC. I think that was, he's been there before. He knows Bill. He knows the system. And I think that he will continue to progress and help this defense. He has the ability of being that guy and being able to lock down receivers. And, but again, Bill's mentality is next man up. It's who's available. And I think those guys in that locker room and where they're at in the point of the season, they need to take that pretty personally, and they need to take it on themselves to step up and be that guy. Those guys are not there. They're gone. They're not coming back in this point in the season, and we can't rely on them to do anything for us, when we're in the course of a football game. So, guys got to step up. I mean, and we haven't played good football. We're losing football games. So I think really it's not about who New England's playing right now. It's really about New England football as a team, as a whole, and those players in the locker room trying to step up, guys that are leaders in that team, stepping up, making sure that, we're preparing as much as we can and keeping everyone that mentality, keeping a positive attitude going into these football games, because realistically, 1-5 football team can still make it to the playoffs. And I think that's something that they have to focus on, that this season is not lost. Like, maybe we don't have, the guys that everyone thinks that can make it and win football games, but that's something that's can't be their way of thinking. And every single game they have from here on out is going to be a battle. And I think that's up and down the line, in every game that they go in, then they're going to have to limit the mistakes and try to play good complementary football and then see what happens.
So let's talk about both sides of the line of scrimmage up front. The big guys, certainly Judon's not there defensively, but how are the offensive line guys playing? You've had some injuries you had to deal with as well. How about the up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, I mean, I think, they have some leaders. David Andrews has been there for a while. Trent Brown has been in that system. So I think some of this stuff, I think those guys that have been there, they really need to take it upon themselves to really hone in on their group as a whole, and try to get them playing well, because it starts up front, right? I mean, if the offensive line is playing well, we can run the ball better, we can get play action going, and we can do some different things on offense that really help the football team kind of move the ball down the field. Something that we really have struggled with throughout the season. We've seen a lot of 3-and-outs, and we've seen a lot of just playing from behind. We're not a team that's built to play from behind. And then on the defensive side of things, I think, Lawrence Guy, guys, in the linebackers, safeties, Jabril Peppers, Duggar, like those guys need to step up. They need to make some plays down the field. They need to understand that, maybe we don't have the guys up front that are really going to disrupt the defense. So they got to be ready to, play the pass and make some plays and get some turnovers to give the offense a little spark, give the team a spark. Someone's got to step up and make some plays.
Last one I got for you, Chris, knowing that the offense is looking for answers. We saw Malik Cunningham get inserted into the lineup last week. Not a lot, but inserted, which has obviously sparked a lot of people's thoughts, like what could be coming down the line here if point production continues to be an issue. What do you think are the options with him in the lineup for Bill O'Brien?
I think that's it's something that they need to continue to work on if that's what they want to do. It kind of seemed like a failed experiment in my opinion when they threw him in there in the Raiders game. It didn't seem like it was, they threw him in their own zone and it was on a second down play and it ran an option. It didn't seem like he had the confidence really to pull that ball and take kind of ownership of being the quarterback in that situation. I think it's a good option to have. I think they can continue to work on it, get some plays in the red zone, give something a defense hasn't seen before. But I think it's something that they really have to continue to build off of and, really get a core set of plays for him to get thrown in there that they know that they can run well, that they know can be successful. Something that, obviously now teams have to prepare for. So I think it was good for him to get in there and show that. I'm not sure if they're necessarily ready for that part of, the offense to be thrown out there in the game.
Chris, thanks for spending some time with us. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Good to see you guys.
All right, always good to catch up with Chris Hogan. Hey, Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today and play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills. We move to the numbers game, where Steve will be quizzed on Sean McDermott's team sack history as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. Question number 1, Steve. How many times in his 8 seasons prior to this one as defensive coordinator with the Bills has Sean McDermott's defenses finished in the top 10 in sacks? 8 seasons? How many in the top 10 in sacks, if you had to guess?
8.
It's not 8. I'll give you one more crack at it.
7.
You're close. It's 6. 6 times his defenses have finished in the top 10 in sacks. Question number 2. How many times in those 8 seasons did McDermott's defense finish in the top 3 in sacks? So you know there's 6 seasons where he finished in the top 10. How many of those 6 were the top 3?
I will say 2.
It's 3.
Just missing.
Finished 3rd in 2009, 1st in 2013, 2nd in 2016. Question number 3. We know Von Miller is the career sack leader on the Bills with 123.5. Who is second on the team career-wise?
Current? I will say... Leonard Floyd.
There you go. Well done. You just had to think a little bit, and you can get there pretty quickly. 54 career sacks. Can you tell me who's third on the all-time Bills current player career sack list? This is a tricky one.
He's not on. Is he on IR?
He is not. He is currently up and ready to go.
I will say Jordan Phillips.
You're close. Jordan Phillips has 22.5 career sacks. He is 4th.
Okay, so the guy I want is just ahead of him. I will say 24.5. He's got.
He's got 22.5.
22.5. I'll say I'll say I don't think it's Rousseau. I'll say Poona Ford.
It is not Poona Ford.
Yes.
It is your friend and mine, Shaq Lawson, with 25. Longevity helping Shaq, obviously.
I should have known that.
Yes, 25 for Shaq. Here's the crazy thing, Steve. If you add up the next 4 Bills players' career sacks who make up Buffalo's top 5 active sack leaders, you still don't get 123.5 for Von Miller. You only get 120.
Well,
Just
listen,
think about that for a second.
Most people can't imagine how difficult it is to get 100 sacks in the NFL. Vaughn got 123. He's got like 2 extra seasons on top of a 10-year, 10-sack
And
career.
he missed the last 6 games last year.
He's
missed another season with an ACL.
He has had an absolutely elite career as a defensive end.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
All right, that is the numbers game. Time for our high-low picks of the week. High-low is the free-to-play game at FanDuel.com for a chance at $10,000 in total prizes. Pick the highest and lowest performing players and teams across various stat categories. The closer you are to actual results, the more points you get, and more points means a chance at a bigger prize. I'll get us going this week with the high for team passing yards. I'm taking the Chiefs against the worst pass defense in football. Yes, the LA Chargers. They can get to the quarterback, but for some reason cannot prevent completions. I expect that game to be a shootout, even though the Chiefs' defense has played well this season. You know the Chiefs' defense is second in points allowed? Second in points allowed. So KC for the passing yardage high.
For me, passing yardage low, it's easy for me. I'm taking the New England Patriots against this Bills defense. They struggle to run the ball. They struggle to pass the ball. They're bad on third down. Their red zone efficiency is bad. So I'm going to take New England for low on points, although it kills me to do that because They're going to play well against the Bills. I'm just telling you right now.
Okay.
But I think you got to go with what they've done on the field so far. Low for passing yards to the Patriots.
I like that pick. I'm going with a stack here and going right back to that Chiefs game against the Chargers for high for rushing yards. I've got Isaiah Pacheco. The guy runs with purpose, and the Chargers will be so focused on stopping the Chiefs' pass game, which means light boxes for Pacheco. So he's my high rusher for the week.
Low for rushing yards, I'm going to go with A.J. Dillon of the Green Bay Packers. They're facing the Broncos, which are not a great defense, but the job share in Green Bay is going to keep A.J. Dillon from having a ton of carries. So I'm going to take him for low for production against the
I like
Denver
that.
Broncos.
High for receiving yards, I'm going to take DK Metcalf. Geno Smith hasn't found him as often of late, but I think that changes against the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals don't really have a good matchup for him in their secondary, so I think he'll eat against Arizona. Metcalf high for receiving yards.
Low for receiving yards, I'm going to take Michael Pittman from the Colts. As you know, Anthony Richardson's down. Gardner Minshew's now the quarterback moving forward. And I think Pittman will probably get a few chances. The Browns are playing defense like crazy, so Pittman's going to be low for receiving yards. I think the Cleveland Browns may hold him off the scoreboard and pitch a shutout this week.
Wow, that's a call. Our closing figure today deals with the Bills-Patriots rivalry, which was very one-sided for a long time, but of late, it's been Buffalo that has put a stranglehold on the series. Not only have they won 6 of their last 7 meetings, they've averaged just over 30 points per game over that span while holding New England to an average of 16.4 points per game. That wide scoring disparity is rare with the Patriots franchise. How rare? Well, the Bills became the first team to win by 10-plus points in 3 straight games against New England since Bill Belichick became their head coach in 2000. That's it for this edition. Make sure you subscribe to Bills by the Numbers on whatever podcast platform you use so you're notified when our next episode is out. And remember, when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. We'll see you next time, everybody!